Oh my God, what happened? I'm so lost here. Why didn't I listen to John? Why didn't I pay attention to his videos? I wouldn't be in this situation if I did. So what are you going to do when you're lost? Well, the first thing you need to do is find higher ground so you have a view, and you can look for landmarks and things like that. You might not be as lost as you think, or you might find a place that's worth going to. The second thing is to look for landmarks like water tanks. Water tanks will usually have the name on a town on it, so that'll kind of tell you where you're at. And if you're really confused, look for a cell tower, because I'm going to tell you something about cell towers you probably didn't know. If you go to the base of every cell tower, there's a fence around it with a gate, and on that gate is a sign, and that sign will tell you exactly where you are. We are going to go over how to navigate like people did before we had cell phones and satellites and even compasses, using the moon and the stars at night and the sun during the day. We should start with some of the modern technology and get that out of the way and talk about that first, because it might not be as useless as a lot of people think. You probably have a cell phone, and you probably have some apps on there. And maybe if you're an outdoor person, you got one of these, like a Garmin eTrex, I think this one is. These are going to be the first things that you throw out. But I'm going to tell you right now, don't throw them out. If you have a charge on your phone or a charge on your Garmin, you're going to have access to a map. If we have satellite service, you're still going to have that blue dot that appears and shows you where you are. And if you have that, then really you don't even need to watch this video. I'm just kidding about that. You definitely should, because even in normal circumstances, it's difficult to keep these things charged. I know I'm running to charge my phone probably 20 times a day. If electricity is scarce, I'm not going to be carrying a 20, 30-pound battery pack with me. What's the next step is to use these maps, right? Like this one, where is it? Right there. That's a map of Vermont up there. And I got that from a rest area on the interstate, and it was free. And these are really the best kind of maps that you can get. And I'm not just saying that because they're free and I'm cheap, which is true, but they also contain a lot of all the useful information that we need. There's more sophisticated maps that have like contour lines and elevations and all this, that, and the other thing, and they have their purpose for sure. For basic SHTF survival stuff, they're not going to be very much help to you. Okay, they don't have all the highways, they don't have all the roads, they don't have the railroads, they don't have the trails, they don't have any of that stuff, and that's what you really need, okay? And if you're going to get a free map, make sure you get one of these, okay? Because one thing that I've learned about these maps is they cram a lot of information into a very small space, and it can be very hard to read, particularly if you're older or if it's night. If it's nighttime, it's very hard to read. So these magnifying glasses, I spent like $6, $7, $8 maybe on this. I don't know, Walmart, Target, CVS, something like that. Every prepper should have a map in their bag. The most useful one that you're going to get is a map of your state. If you want to expand on that, you can get some surrounding states or maybe a smaller map of just your area. With your maps, be sure and get a Ziploc bag and keep your map in that, because there is nothing more useless to you in an SHTF situation than a wet map. So the idea is to not get lost in the first place. And there's things that you can do to prevent that. And if you watch my previous videos, which I know you did, then you know you should have a community, a group of 5 to 10 people that you're going to get together with. You're going to have a meeting place and you're going to meet up for SHTF. And I discussed having like the same meeting place wherever you might go. So if your meetup place is a cell tower or a water tank or a bridge, if you guys get like evacuated, like you have to move on to a next town or something like that, then somebody looking for you will know to go to that town and look for a bridge or a water tank or a cell tower, right? So you just let them know that you're going to be at the same place in each town. And what you can do is come up with a form of signals, right? So I like the idea of painted rocks. Paint them like red, blue, yellow, just small ones. And you leave them in obvious location, but you have one for north, south, east, or west. Okay, so if somebody's separated from your group for some reason and you have to bug out, you just leave that rock there somewhere where they're going to find it, and they'll come up and they'll be like, oh, they went north, so I'm going to head that way. That's a very good idea. It's a good way to keep people from getting lost and to keep your group cohesive. So there's a right way and a wrong way to navigate by the sun. Everybody's heard the story the moss grows on the north side of trees, but that's a myth. As you can see here, moss grows wherever moss wants to grow. It can be affected by shade. It can be affected by a lot of things. And one thing you need to know if you're going to try to use this method is the difference between moss and lichens and fungus, because there's 100 varieties of each. Now, oftentimes you'll see a preponderance of moss growing on the north side, and that's kind of an indicator, but like I said, you just cannot rely on that method. The surefire way to determine where north is using the sundial method. That's what I call it anyway. So you just take a stick and you drive it into the ground and get yourself a couple rocks and look at the stick shadow. Okay, get a short stick so it's easier to do this. But take one of your rocks and just put it on the end of that shadow, very end. Then you wait 30 to 60 minutes, go make yourself some coffee, do something. Come back, put another rock at the end of the shadow where it is now. And what you want to do is find the exact center between the two rocks, okay? Because a line from your original stick up through the center of the two rocks is going to point to north. And that is an absolutely foolproof method. You don't have to necessarily use sticks. You can use a tree or just get creative and do something. But when you're facing north, your left is going to be west and your right is going to be east. And if you turn around, you're going to be facing south. All right, so we want to now turn to nighttime navigation and how you find out where you're at. So look up in the sky. If you got a full moon, just look down and that's south. Pretty easy. If you have a partial moon, just draw a straight line across the tips and follow it to the horizon, and that'll point you to the south. If you can find the Big Dipper in the sky, that's usually pretty prominent. Don't get it confused with the Little Dipper. But just look at the handle and make a straight line, and that'll take you right to the North Star. Now you're facing north. LERD confuses a lot of people, and it is a little tricky because you need a fixed object. You can use a broom handle or something, and you want to line your eye up with a star and the tip of your fixed object. Now, any slight movement with your eye or the stick is going to really kind of confuse everything. If the star moves to the left, you're facing north. If the star moves up, then you're facing east. If the star moves right, then you're facing south. And if the star moves down, then you're facing west. See, that wasn't hard. Estimating distances and travel times isn't that difficult. The trick is to find an object you can estimate the width of, like a car or a picture. In this instance, I'm going to use a picture in my basement. Close one eye and line your thumb up with the edge of the object. Then close that eye and open the other one and see how far your thumb moved. In this instance, it was half a picture or about a foot. Then multiply that by 10 and the distance is 10 feet, which is about how far this picture is. Farther objects tend to be less accurate, but the same principle applies. This water tank is like 50 feet wide. Close one eye, open the other one, and my thumb moved about 2 water tanks or 100 feet. Just multiply that by 10, and you get 1,000 feet. The farther your destination is, the less accurate you're likely to be. But just pick a place that's approximately a mile wide and put your thumb up on it. Then close that eye, open the other, and multiply by 10. And you should have at least an approximate distance to where you're heading. Travel times, just estimate if you're walking 2 to 3 miles an hour. If you're on a bike, 15 miles an hour. A car in the city is like maybe 5 miles an hour. A car on the rural area is going to be 45 miles an hour, and highways are 60 or 70, you know? All right, folks. Before we wrap up, I just was going to go over a couple of map basics here. I'm sure everybody's familiar with maps, but if you haven't opened one up for a while, this might help. So, like I said, look for water tanks, look for cell towers, things like that, so you know what town you're in. Find your town you're in, look on your map, okay? There's a list of cities there, a list of towns, and next to each one is a designator like D5 or C17 or something like that. This is a map of Vermont, and one of my favorite places to go in Vermont is Jamaica. There's a park there, and it's awesome for hiking and stuff like that. So Jamaica state park is E15 on this map. So you just go across the top till you get to E, and then go down until you get to 15, and right there is where it's at. So I know where the place is. I've been there like, a couple of times, but I couldn't find it on this map. So you definitely use that tool. The other thing, here is your legend, and it has all your highways, your railroad tracks, and your trails and things like that. So you should be able to estimate your direction now. You should be able to estimate your travel time and things like that, whether you're hiking or whatever, and you can figure out how long it's going to take you to get to different places. Be sure to look at the scale of the map here too, so you know how far a mile is, get you between your towns. Anyway, that's pretty much all I had for today. Thanks you all for watching the video. Take care. Peace out.